Yeah, so today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about loving our mission and a little bit about work. How many of us love to work hard? I hope all of us do. Kids, when mom asks you to go take out the trash or go clean your room, are you like, yes, I was just waiting for that? Or no, not always, right? When I was in high school and my mom asked me to do something, I used to say, your wish is my command, although I think I sometimes said that a little bit sarcastically. And I still say this to my wife sometimes, and it might still be a little bit sarcastic sometimes. But to love to work, especially when you're young and you want to do a lot of fun things, often doesn't come naturally, right? Although there are maybe a few exceptions. I heard there's one of our teen boys' favorite day is cleanup day. And Ben and Greta, they have been doing a great job for the last many years leading our teens. And once a year, they clean up like the back pavilion area and the playground. And this was his favorite day to clean up that area. And what if I told you that this is kind of the attitude we need to have towards work? And you may say, well, but wasn't work punishment for what Adam and Eve did in the garden? Work actually was not a punishment, right, from sin, but rather it was actually part of God's original design for humanity. Adam and Eve, right from the get-go, they were given work to do, and they were things like maintaining the garden, naming and classifying the animals. God told them to subdue and take control over the earth. And so work was really intended to be a delight and a way for us to use the gifts that God has given us and our abilities. And this just sounds all great, right? If only it was actually always like this. But the truth is that work can be dreadful at times, right? Especially now in the summer when it's 100 degrees outside, it can be hard sometimes. I sometimes see the guys out there working on the building, and I feel for them. It is hard, and so after sin entered the world, the nature of work changed. As a consequence of Adam and Eve's disobedience, work became difficult and toilsome. The ground became cursed. It was challenging to grow things, and Adam found out what it was like to sweat. And if sin had never occurred, we would still work, but work would not have been a burden. Instead, it would have just remained a fulfilling thing that allowed us to express our creativity, our wisdom, and our strength as being made in God's image. But guess what? Work is still those things. We still have it as a way to express all these things like wisdom, strength, and it's fulfilling, right? When you clean up your house, there's almost nothing better than just looking at your amazing, beautiful, cleaned up house, right? It just brings a satisfaction. Or when you clean your car, you just want to take a picture of it and put it on your status, right? There's something satisfying about finishing something. And so, yeah, today we're going to be talking about work and specifically our mission and how to love our mission. My main verse for today is Colossians 3:22-25, and we're going to read that. It says, "Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service, as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality." So Paul says, in this passage, he's talking to bondservants, and bondservants were pretty much just like slaves in the Roman society. And slaves were generally not treated very well, and Paul knows this, and he's saying, obey in everything your earthly masters, and don't do it just by way of eye service. Don't just work at when they're looking at you, just trying to please them, but work with a sincere heart, fearing God. And so he's saying, hey, slaves, I know you're not treated right all the time, and so sometimes it's not fair, but that's why you work with a mindset of, I'm doing this for the Lord and not for my master. And it's the same for us today. If we're working for someone, we need to work as if we are working for the Lord. And I like that last part of the verse. He says, for the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality, right? We have all kinds of hierarchies in our systems today, but with God, there is no partiality, right? We all have the same Lord, and he looks at our hearts. And so, as this is being read, the church in Colossae is probably saying, preach it, brother. Like the slave owners were probably saying, man, this is good stuff. But then he has another short verse for the employer, and it's in Colossians 4:1. It says, masters, treat your bondservants justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. Just like these slaves had a master, they also have a master in heaven, right? So whether you're a CEO, a COO, or a CFO, or a supervisor, or a lead hand, or a welder, or someone who crunches numbers, or someone who cleans, we all have the same ultimate master, and he's a good master. The last few Sundays, Alois and I have been going through our four priorities, right? First was God. Second was family and relationships. Third was our physical health. We all had an appointment with a doctor on Sunday morning. And then now we're talking about our mission, right? And so we all have the same mission, and that is to fulfill the Great Commission. But the way each and every one of us does this might look a little different. And it talks about this in Romans 12:6-8. It says, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion to our faith. If service, in our serving. The one who teaches, in his teaching. And the one who exhorts, in his exhortation. And the one who contributes, in generosity. And the one who leads, with zeal. And the one who does acts of mercy, with cheerfulness. So this verse is saying we all have different gifts. And some of us, we're good at serving, maybe good at teaching, maybe we're good at being generous. And not only do we have our own gifts, we all also have our own sphere of influence. We all have a sphere of influence that almost nobody else has, right? We have our co-workers that are unique to us. We have the people that we hang out with a lot. We have our family and extended family. So we have our sphere of influence, and we also have our different skill sets that we have learned. Some of us, we really know how to pull wrenches and fix things. Some of us know how to make very complicated spreadsheets on Excel on the computer, and some of us know how to build these big structures like it's happening right outside here, right? And so, and some of us know how to make really good food. But we all share the core mission, right? And this is why our church exists, right? To glorify Christ by making disciples. And so wherever you are, whatever we're doing, we need to do this with this mission in mind and walk in the gifting that God has for us with, as this verse said, with passion, with zeal, with cheerfulness. And so how can we fulfill our mission? Do I maybe need to leave my job and go into full-time ministry in order to fulfill the mission that God has for me? The answer is no. God has all given us a platform where we can do ministry. We all have a platform to do ministry. Our calling and our career or our job, they go hand in hand. I heard one pastor say, he said, our mission and our call, or you could say our calling is our purpose, but our career is our platform. Our mission and our purpose will not change, right? We will have the same mission throughout our whole lives, but your career may change, right? You may go from working at Chick-fil-A to being a student to becoming a doctor or something, right? So if you've ever questioned, am I maybe wasting my life at a secular job, which is a question I have had in my life, the answer is it's really up to you, right? Are you using this platform that God has given you to glorify him and to make him known? So how can I use my platform to glorify him? 1 Peter 3:15, it says, but in your hearts, honor Christ, the Lord, as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, but yet do it with gentleness and respect. So it says we need to always be ready to share the gospel to anyone that asks. But I think this is a big way, but more than that, it's in the way we live. And so I have 3 points here in the way that we live, how we can show Christ through what we do. And so the first one is integrity. Matthew 5:37, it says, "Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil." Your word, it should be trustworthy enough on its own, without the need for additional assurances. And if you find yourself needing to give additional assurances, why is that? When I make a commitment, do I follow through with what I said? Am I true to what I say? This is an area actually I have struggled with a little bit, and I realized this problem one day when me and Anna, we went to a friend's house for lunch, and we got there, and they had a 6-year-old son. His name was Jeremiah. He was very happy to see us, and as soon as he sees me, he says, "Regan, right after lunch, we have to play soccer." And I said, "Yes, we should." And so we had lunch, and right after lunch, it was nap time for the kids. And so their mom was bringing their kids to have a nap, and I was helping a little bit with the dishes. And it didn't take long, and out comes red-faced and teary-eyed Jeremiah. And the mom asked me, "Regan, did you say you would play soccer with Jeremiah after lunch?" And I had almost forgotten, and I said, "Oh, I guess I did." And so we had to play some soccer first. And I was a little surprised at how serious of a matter this was. Like, he was just a kid, and it was just soccer, right? But I was wrong, right? It is a serious matter. Are we true to what we say? When your wife asks you when you'll be home from work, do you usually come home a little bit later than what you say? I heard there's 2 phrases that we can almost never trust. It's when a man says, "I'll be home in 5 minutes," and when a woman says, "I'll be ready in 5 minutes." It's tough to be someone of your word, a person of your word, right? And on the surface, we may think that we are, but let's say maybe your son or daughter says, "Hey, let's go play some catch or do something," and you say, you're maybe in the middle of something, "Just a minute." And so he goes back and he looks at the clock, he's looking at the seconds, go all the way around, he takes it literally, right? And as soon as it gets around, he's back. "Okay, minute's done, we're gonna go play catch." And no, just a little bit longer. That was not even a minute, you think, right? Or something, and then he learns that, okay, when Dad says just a minute, he's actually not talking about a minute. How many of you kids, when your parents are, when you're visiting a friend's house, and your parents say, "Okay, it's going to be time to go, put on your shoes, want to leave," and then you end up talking at the entrance for another hour? Has that ever happened? I know it happened to us a lot. Bible says, "Let your yes be yes, and your no be no." And these are just small little examples, right? But there is more serious times where this happens, and I think we do this to ourselves more than we even do it to others. There was one time I decided I was going to fast on Monday. And then I remembered after breakfast on Monday the commitment that I had made. And, or maybe we said to ourselves, instead of scrolling in the evening, I'm going to put down the phone and I'm going to read a book. I'm going to do something productive. And then we forget about it the next day, right? And these promises to ourselves are often the toughest ones to make, because often there's not a person watching us, right? But integrity, it's doing the right thing even when nobody around you is watching, and being committed to what you say. Our verse in Colossians says, "Do not do things by way of eye service." We need to be the same person we are at home as we are with a family, or at church as we are with a family, right? When I got my first job for one of my uncles in Canada, I was probably around 14. He hired me to do some work around his office, trimming some grass, and his son was also working. He was on the tractor mowing, and we worked for a while, and eventually we saw my uncle had left. And so I see his son that was on the tractor. He goes off the tractor and he grabs a Coke and he sits down, and then, man, I was jealous, so I put down the trimmer and I go follow him, and we're just sitting there enjoying our Coke, and all of a sudden we see my uncle come back. We dropped those Cokes and we ran back to what we were doing, and then we started acting like it never had happened, right? This is called doing things by way of eye service. And this is what actually Jesus even accused the Pharisees of too. They had a holiness that only went skin deep, but on the inside, they were filled with everything dead and unclean. They looked spiritual, but yet in reality, they only cared about their image. And so what does it take to be a person of integrity? I think one practical thing is diligence. Diligence. People care more about what you do than what you say. I heard someone put it this way. He said, if who you are was made up of votes, who you hang out with would be worth 1 vote, and what you say would be worth 1 vote, and then the things that you do would be worth 2 votes. And so if what we do matters so much, we need to be diligent. Diligence, it is the opposite of complacency. Our verse said, whatever you do, work heartily. To work heartily means to work with passion. It means to work with enthusiasm, with effort, putting everything into the task, right? And it's about engaging your mind, your emotions, all your energy into finishing the job. And it's not just going through the motions, right? Just going through the motions is called complacency. Sometimes, especially if we've been doing the same job or just the same routine for a long time, we can fall into just kind of going through the motions. And you can do a good job without maybe even thinking about what you're doing. But I like one quote. It's from Jim Collins. He said, "Good is the enemy of great." Sometimes we can fall into this mindset, that's gott genoeg, nee? It's good enough. And it can keep us from working diligently and achieving great things. And Proverbs 10:4 talks a little bit about this. It says, I don't think I have it on the screen, but it says, a slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. If you continue to practice godly values in your daily work habits, I think we can expect nothing more than what the Lord has for us, which is his favor for uprightness, right? And diligence, it is persistent, hard-working effort. And so where am I good, but I could be great? What area in my life am I just kind of going through the motions? It could be at work, it could be at home, in my devotional life, in my prayer life, when I run errands. In everything we do, we have the opportunity to be mindful and to make a difference in our own life and maybe even in someone else's. And it will look different at different times, right? We're always called to be hardworking. I think we should not be all in at work and then come home and then just be complacent, right, or lazy. I think we need to be diligent all the time, but it will look different. Like if you're a youth, maybe you come home from school and all you want to do is just lock yourself in your room. Maybe diligence is, hey, taking time to spend time with your family, maybe helping around the house a little bit. Maybe as a father, diligence might look like spending time with your kids, making memorable moments. But wherever we are, we need to be diligent. And then my last point here is rest. We live in a culture that idolizes work and long hours, right? If we can say how many hours we've worked and it's a lot, it's something to be proud of, right? But God took rest seriously. And actually in Genesis 2:2-3, it says, "And on the 7th day, God finished his work that he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and he made it holy, because on it, God rested from all his work that he had done in creation." So why did God rest? Did he get tired? I don't think so, right? God does not get tired. He's all powerful. But the rest he took was not because he needed it. It was because he wanted to show us how we needed to live our lives. What happens when we ignore resting? I really love soccer, and I think soccer is a good kind of illustration of this. A soccer game is usually 90 minutes long, and there can only be 5 substitutions in one game, and there's 11 players that play. And so that means that 6 players that are on the soccer field are going to be running for an hour and a half. And in a soccer game, most injuries will happen 60 minutes after into the game. And why is this? It is because of what happens when a person gets tired. We tend to start taking shortcuts. We get sloppy. We drag our feet. We ignore details. And I think it's the same way for us in life. How many of us like hiking? I'm not a big hiker. I enjoy it. But when you're going up a long mountain and it gets tiring, usually you will stop and take breaks, right? Because if not, you'll just faint from exhaustion. And it's the same way for us. We need to take breaks. When we don't take breaks, we end up hurting people out of maybe out of stress. Sometimes we just want to give up altogether, and we sometimes don't think straight. We get burnt out. We even have an example, I think, of someone that basically collapsed from stress, and that is Elijah. Elijah had finished doing many good things for God, and he was fearless, trusting that God was with him. And he even went against 850 prophets of Baal. And then all of a sudden, he gets terrified because of one angry lady. And this angry lady's name was Queen Jezebel. And she had said something that caused him to be fearful. She said, "By this time tomorrow, you will be dead." And so Elijah, he fled. And in 1 Kings 19, verse 4, it says, "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness," right? He was escaping. "And he came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, 'It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers.'" How many of us have said this? "This is enough, God. I can't take it anymore." Elijah was so far down, he wanted to die. But the good thing is, the Lord knew exactly what he needed, and he knows what we need. And so Elijah, he lays down to sleep for a while, and then an angel comes in and touches him on the shoulder, and then he wakes up, he sees some bread and some water beside him. And so he eats that and drinks the water, and then he just basically collapses again, sleeps again, and then gets touched on the shoulder again. There's some more bread and water there, and he eats again. And then after he's been refreshed, he travels on foot 200 miles from Beersheba to Mount Sinai, which took him about a 40 days journey, and he goes into a cave. And so he goes into this cave, and then after, God tells him to come back out because he will pass by. And then as the story goes, there was a violent wind, right? Even throwing rocks, but the Lord was not in the wind. And then there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And then there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And then after everything had gone quiet, and Elijah stilled himself, he was in the sound of a low whisper. God was not in these extraordinary things, right? He was in just the ordinary things. Once everything got quiet, once Elijah slowed down, God spoke to him. Maybe this is what our rest should look like. Maybe we need to take a day or maybe a few days, turn off all electronics and distractions, and just slow down and listen to what God has for us. And maybe even throughout our day, we can slow down our mind as we wash dishes, change a diaper, or drive to work. God can speak to us through just ordinary moments, and He can remind us of why we are here and what our mission is, and that we are people of integrity, right? People that say what we mean and mean what we say, people that do things with diligence, even though it may be hard at times, and that He has given us our platform and our job and our sphere of influence and our talents, all to bring Him glory and to fulfill our mission. So why don't we just stand, and I'll close in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for your goodness. You're a good Father, and we thank you that you care for us. You care for our needs. You even want us to rest at times, God, and just focus on you and trust that you've got us. God, help us to remember our mission, Lord, and that is to glorify you wherever we are, and help us to be diligent and be people of integrity, God, and where we care more about what you think than what others, Lord. And we love you. We thank you for all that you do for us. Amen.